Havenwood wasn't just a village. It was a community clinging to the edge of the Alaskan wilderness, a patchwork of weathered cabins and snow-laden pines, where the wind carried the scent of pine needles and the distant howls of wolves. The long Alaskan winter painted the landscape in shades of white and gray, the sun a rare and cherished guest. For 12-year-old Finn, Havenwood felt like a world away from the adventures he read about in his books, a place where his dreams of exploring the wild felt as distant as the summer sun. He wasn't just quiet, he was observant, his inner world teeming with stories and fantasies, a vibrant escape from the mundane reality of his life. His unruly brown hair wasn't just a mop, it was a reflection of his untamed spirit, a symbol of his connection to the wilderness he yearned to explore. His eyes, holding the weight of the world, weren't just curious. They were empathetic, reflecting a deep sensitivity to the world around him, both human and animal. Finn's father, a man weathered by years of working as a park ranger, wasn't just a provider, he was a protector, burdened by the responsibility of keeping his family safe in the harsh Alaskan wilderness. His gruff exterior hid a deep affection for Finn, but his experiences had taught him caution, to prioritize safety above all else. The other kids playing their games of ice hockey weren't just different. They represented a world Finn didn't understand, a world that valued conformity over imagination. He felt like an outsider, his imagination and curiosity setting him apart, making him feel like a lone wolf in a pack of sled dogs. His worn sketchbook wasn't just a place to draw. It was his confidant, a portal to the wild world he craved. The animals he sketched weren't just subjects. They were his companions, his silent observers. He studied their movements, their expressions, their very essence, trying to understand their place in the delicate balance of the Alaskan ecosystem. The shadow Finn saw wasn't just a shape. It was an enigma, a whisper from the wilderness beckoning him closer. The wolf wasn't just gaunt. It was resilient, its matted fur and visible ribs telling a story of survival against the odds. Its piercing blue eyes weren't just striking. They were familiar, reflecting Finn's own loneliness, his own yearning for connection. The compassion Finn felt wasn't just kindness. It was recognition, a sense that he understood the wolf's struggle, its vulnerability. The piece of jerky wasn't just food, it was an offering, a gesture of friendship, a tentative bridge between two worlds. The wolf's hesitation wasn't just caution, it was a moment of trust, a weighing of the risks, a choice between survival and connection. Anya's nightly visits weren't just a routine, they were a ritual, a silent conversation between two kindred spirits. The jerky Finn shared wasn't just sustenance, it was a symbol of growing trust, a tangible representation of their budding friendship. Anya's nuzzling wasn't just affection, it was communication, a language of touch and scent, a way of expressing gratitude and acceptance. Finn's solace wasn't just comfort, it was connection, a feeling of belonging he had never experienced before. He wasn't just telling Anya about his dreams, he was confiding in her, sharing his heart, his hopes, his fears, his yearning for a world where he felt understood. He confided in Anya about his father's expectations, his feelings of isolation, his dreams of escaping Havenwood and exploring the vast Alaskan wilderness. His father's concern wasn't just disapproval, it was worry, a fear born from the harsh realities of their life, a fear that Finn's connection to the wolf would bring danger to their family. His stern voice wasn't just anger, it was a plea, a desperate attempt to protect his son from the wilderness he both loved and feared. Finn's guilt wasn't just remorse, it was a conflict, a struggle between his loyalty to his father and his growing bond with Anya. He knew he couldn't abandon her, that she needed him, that their connection was something special, something worth fighting for. Anya's absence wasn't just a missed visit, it was a gut-wrenching pang of loss, a chilling premonition that something was terribly wrong. The soft whine that reached Finn's ears wasn't just a sound, it was a desperate cry for help, a primal plea that resonated deep within him. Anya's urgency wasn't just instinct, it was a mother's desperation, a fierce need to protect her pups. The Alaskan wilderness wasn't just dangerous, it was a labyrinth of secrets, a place of both breathtaking beauty and hidden peril. A realm where the laws of nature reigned supreme, unforgiving and absolute. Finn's hesitation wasn't just fear. It was a moment of agonizing decision, a choice between the familiar comfort of obedience and the compelling call of compassion, between the known world of his village and the unknown dangers of the wild. Anya's eyes weren't just intense. They were pleading, communicating a message that transcended words, a silent call to action, a desperate request for help. Her movements weren't just slow and deliberate. They were purposeful, guiding Finn, leading him deeper into the wilderness, towards a destiny he couldn't yet comprehend, a responsibility he couldn't ignore. The journey into the Alaskan interior wasn't just a walk, it was a descent into the unknown, a passage through a world where survival was a constant struggle, where every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig could signal danger. The towering pines, heavy with snow, weren't just trees, they were silent sentinels, watching Finn's every move, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms. The air grew colder, biting at his exposed skin, a constant reminder of the harshness of this environment. Finn's heart pounded not just with fear, but with anticipation, a sense of adventure mixed with trepidation. He thought of the stories Silas, the village elder, told, tales of brave hunters and cunning animals, of the delicate balance between humans and nature, of the respect due to the wild. He pushed the fear aside, trusting Anya, believing in the bond they shared, a connection that transcended species. The small clearing they reached wasn't just a place, it was a sanctuary, a hidden haven nestled amidst the towering trees. The cave entrance, partially hidden by snow, wasn't just a hole in the ground. It was a gateway, a portal to a secret world, a place where Anya could protect her young. The cave's darkness wasn't just absence of light, it was a cloak of mystery, a shroud concealing the secrets within. The air, thick with the scent of earth and fur, wasn't just musty. It was alive, carrying the essence of the wolf family, their presence palpable. Finn's eyes adjusted slowly, and the shadows began to take shape, revealing the hidden reality of Anya's world. The pile of fur in the corner wasn't just a mass of fur, it was a cradle, a nest of warmth and life. The whimpering sound wasn't just a cry, it was a voice, small and vulnerable, a plea for comfort and protection. Finn's breath caught in his throat not just with surprise, but with awe, a sense of wonder at the miracle of new life. The wolf pups weren't just animals. They were Anya's children, her responsibility, her reason for being. Their tiny bodies, trembling with cold, weren't just fragile. They were resilient, holding the spark of life within them. The realization that Anya had led him to her den, to her pups, wasn't just a discovery. It was a revelation, a profound understanding of her trust in him, her desperate hope that he would help. The decision to bring the pups back to Havenwood wasn't just an act of compassion, it was a defiance of the village's unspoken rules, a challenge to their deeply ingrained fear of the wild. Finn wasn't just carrying 3 tiny lives in his coat, he was carrying the weight of responsibility, the burden of bridging the gap between 2 worlds that seemed irreconcilable. The villagers' reaction wasn't just anger and fear, it was a reflection of their history, their generations-long struggle for survival in a harsh environment where wolves were often seen as competitors, even enemies. Finn's father's rage wasn't just paternal concern, it was a manifestation of the community's collective anxiety, a fear that Finn's actions would disrupt the fragile peace they had established with the wilderness. Finn's protest wasn't just a defense of the pups, it was a plea for understanding, a desperate attempt to awaken the compassion he knew existed within his father and the other villagers. He wasn't just arguing for the pups' survival, he was advocating for a different way of seeing the world, a world where humans and animals could coexist, where fear could be replaced with respect. The barn wasn't just a hiding place, it was a sanctuary, a place where Finn could nurture the pups, tending to their needs, whispering stories of the wild, sharing his dreams of a world where they could roam free. His nightly visits weren't just about feeding and warmth, they were about connection, about building trust, about forging a bond that transcended species. The strain of keeping the pups a secret wasn't just tiring, it was isolating, creating a rift between Finn and his father, a chasm of misunderstanding that threatened to tear their family apart. Finn's father's discovery wasn't just a betrayal, it was a heartbreaking realization that his own son was challenging the very foundation of their community's beliefs. The confrontation wasn't just a clash of wills, it was a battle between love and fear, between the desire to protect and the instinct to control. Finn's father's words weren't just cold and final, they were a reflection of his own internal struggle, his own fear of the unknown, his own inability to see the world through his son's eyes. The removal of the pups wasn't just a cruel act, it was a desperate attempt to restore order, to reassert the village's dominance over the wild, to protect their way of life. Finn's heartbreak wasn't just sadness, it was a profound sense of loss, a feeling of betrayal by the very person he loved and trusted most. Silas, the village elder, wasn't just a wise old man. He was a repository of knowledge, a keeper of the community's history, a bridge between the past and the present. His connection to the land wasn't just folklore. It was a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things, a respect for the delicate balance of the Alaskan ecosystem. Finn's plea wasn't just desperation. It was a cry for guidance, a search for an ally in a world that seemed determined to reject his compassion. Silas's compassion wasn't just kindness. It was a recognition of Finn's unique spirit, his ability to see beyond the fear and prejudice that blinded the other villagers. The challenge Silas presented wasn't just a test. It was an opportunity, a chance for Finn to prove his understanding of the wolves, to demonstrate their value to the community, to bridge the gap between fear and acceptance. The storm that threatened Havenwood wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a catalyst, a force that would test the limits of their resilience, their ability to adapt, their willingness to trust in something beyond themselves. The village's vulnerability wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a collective fear that their way of life was about to be swept away. Anya's return wasn't just a coincidence, it was a testament to the bond she shared with Finn, a recognition of his compassion, his unwavering belief in her. Her guidance wasn't just instinct, it was a calculated risk, a gamble that the villagers would see her not as a threat, but as a savior. The hidden cache of food wasn't just a supply, it was a symbol, a representation of the wolves' connection to the land, their understanding of its rhythms, their ability to provide even in the harshest of conditions. The villagers' stunned reaction wasn't just surprise, it was a dawning realization, a shift in perspective, a glimmer of hope that perhaps they had been wrong all along. The acceptance of the wolves wasn't just a change of heart, it was a transformation, a shift in the very fabric of Havenwood's identity. The villagers, once wary and fearful, began to see Anya and her pups not as threats, but as fellow inhabitants of the Alaskan wilderness, creatures deserving of respect and protection. This newfound understanding wasn't just about survival, it was about recognizing the interconnectedness of all living things, the delicate balance that sustained their community. Finn's father's apology wasn't just words, it was a recognition of his own shortcomings, his fear-driven actions, his failure to see the world through his son's eyes. It was a moment of reconciliation, a rebuilding of trust, a reaffirmation of their familial bond. The villagers' gratitude towards Anya wasn't just politeness, it was a genuine appreciation for her role in their survival, a recognition of her wisdom and resilience. Finn's growth wasn't just about age, it was about perspective, about learning to see the world through the eyes of both humans and animals, about understanding the delicate balance between the needs of the community and the preservation of the wild. His role as a protector of the wilderness wasn't just a job, it was a calling, a responsibility he embraced with passion and dedication. The final scene, with Finn gazing out at the vast Alaskan landscape, wasn't just a picturesque ending. It was a symbol of hope, a vision of a future where humans and animals could coexist in harmony, where the lessons learned from Anya and her pups would guide the community towards a more sustainable and compassionate way of life. Years passed, and Finn grew into a respected member of the Havenwood community. He became a renowned wildlife biologist, dedicating his life to studying and protecting the wolves and other creatures of the Alaskan wilderness. He married and had children of his own, sharing with them the stories of Anya and her pups, instilling in them the same love and respect for the wild that had shaped his own life. Havenwood thrived, its economy diversifying to include ecotourism and sustainable practices. The villagers learned to live in balance with the wilderness, respecting its power and appreciating its beauty. The annual Wolf Festival became a celebration of their connection to the wild, a time for storytelling, dancing, and honoring the legacy of Anya and her pups. One winter evening, as the northern lights danced across the sky, Finn stood with his grandchildren at the edge of the village, gazing out at the familiar landscape. A lone wolf emerged from the trees, its piercing blue eyes reflecting the shimmering aurora. Finn smiled, recognizing the descendant of Anya, a living testament to the enduring power of their bond, a reminder that the wild would always be a part of him, a part of Havenwood, a part of their shared story.